Hey there, this is Robert, and you are listening to The Robert Budd Show. In today's episode, I have a few guests. What I did was took bits and pieces of some of the most liked and downloaded episodes that I've done so far. And so the first one that I have for you is Michael Castrogiovanni, and we speak a little bit about the books that have touched him and moved him and been a huge influence in his life. So without further ado, here's Michael.
To answer your question, yes, there is, and no, there isn't.
Yeah.
It depends on who you are.
What was some of the books that you read that was an impact on you, or that like that you would gift somebody that really made an impact on you that you would want to give it away to somebody else?
There's my favorite one. I actually read it the very first time I went when I was grieving the loss of my aunt, and it really helped with the process, and that was called Awareness. I believe the Perils and Possibilities of Reality by Anthony DeMello. And that book sort of shook me to my core, and I think that's a good book for anybody. And then his second one, or I don't know if it's his second one, but another one he wrote called Rediscovering Life. That one definitely rocked me too. Ones that I liked reading, or a book that I really liked reading that was just enjoyable and eye-opening, but for different ways than, say, Awareness or Rediscovering Life, was the Philokalia. And it's basically writings from, I believe, 1st century to 3rd century Christian mystics, or the Desert Fathers. Just beautiful writings on love and peace and things of that nature. And it's a 4-volume book, so it's an investment. And I understand that a lot of people don't have. I had time, so I put it into that, and I'm thankful that I did, because it just kind of reaffirmed that, like, love is truly the answer. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that to people who want to go deeper into it. What else did I really like? I like the Tao Te Ching a lot. That just kind of sort of sums things up in very simple and very profound ways. Yeah, those are the ones that stand out right now. If I think of anything else while we're talking, I'll throw them out. But that's basically all I did when I was there, was read.
Yeah.
Those are the gold mines for me.
Cool. I know you from kettlebells, of course. Like, we have instructed together and
All right, and the next one is Lance Winsaft, and we talk about meditation and some of the advice that he would give young adults, young entrepreneurs. Here you go.
Yeah. and then trying to understand the hormonal aspect of it.
Yeah.
It's just like doesn't work
Exactly.
out. And do you still meditate?
I do meditate, not as much as I used to, and I'm starting to get back into meditating more, practicing Vipassana meditation twice a day. I used to meditate an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, and I just kind of drifted away from that a little bit, but I started to integrate some of that more back in. That's a bit much, I think, for my schedule right now. I'm not ready to commit back to that much meditating, but I am meditating at least once a day for 20-30 minutes now. It's very grounding, very good.
But if there's one or two major things that influence your life that others can take from, like take up, or whether it's martial arts or sports or a book or philosophy or something like that, what would it be? And I'm going to kind of split up into age groups. Is in particular young men in their early 20s, and then entrepreneurs later on in life. Yeah. Is that a lot? Is that a loaded question?
Is that a loaded question? A little bit. No, it's a great question. So wait, so you're not like, say the question again?
So if there's something, young man in his early 20s that you would say, go and do this, go read this, go experience this, that would set him up either for life or entrepreneurship. In that area of life, life or that age, and then if you're talking to somebody later on, like in their early 30s or an entrepreneur, like go
Right.
do this that
God,
you've
wow.
experienced.
Wow, that's a tough one. It seems like there's like so not. I would say, to someone in their early 20s, I would say go explore as much philosophy, personal growth, transformational education spiritual education as you possibly can. I would say expose yourself to as much as you possibly can. Get exposed. Don't just latch onto something. Go read Aristotle. Go read, I don't know, some other philosopher. Go study Buddhism. Go study Hinduism. Read the Bible. Go, do as many different things as you can find, and come to something for yourself. Be out to discover something for yourself, and all that is what I would say, and see what happens. And I'd say that, and for someone, then say a decade later, if you have at that time figured out what that is you want to pursue, hire a coach in whatever that thing is, or coaches and whatever those things are. Get someone that knows what the hell they're talking about to teach you and mentor you and coach you, and stop trying to do it on your own. And ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah. What would your 80-year-old self be telling you to do?
God, I don't know. My 80-year-old self, who knows what that self's going to be like. My 80-year-old self would probably say, it's a good question, man. My 80-year-old self would probably say to me, don't be such a pussy. Sorry if that offended anybody.
Sorry, but not.
Sorry, I'm not sorry. Yeah, don't be such a wimp. Go for it.
Yeah.
Don't be so hesitant about certain things. Stand for something. Stop dilly-dallying with certain things and waiting, and get after it.
I like it. Yeah, that's really great.
The next one I've got up for you is Brandon Glade, and we talk social media. And Brandon Glade is great for just telling it how it is. So here it is.
Yes, on that I point at the iPad, everybody.
Cool. Well, what is it that you would like to leave people with?
Well, I think it's complex and simple, all in one shot. In the sense of, if you want it, you can have it. If you want to have, I don't care if it's superficial, man. Everyone's got to live their life and what's going to make them happy. But I believe that if they go for something that is their passion, that nothing can stop them, and they can go do whatever they want to do in life. They just have to find what they're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is, man. In the day and age of social media, too, do you realize how much free advertisement that is? And if you use it in a positive way, like, dude, social media has been a godsend to me. I remember back in my crappier times, when I first got on Facebook back in 2007 or 8. I think it was 08, because I got out of my last prison term in July of 08, and my friend showed it to me, and I was like, oh, that's stupid, you guys are dumb. Freaking Facebook, And then when Instagram came out, it said the same thing, Instagram. And then I realized, maybe I should get one, because not only that my family and friends are on there, you can reconnect, but, the way it's this metamorphosis for businesses, and no matter what your business is, I don't care if you're a realtor or do what you and I do.
Yeah.
But yes, if they use the tools that technology has given us to directly complement their passion in life and what they want to do, nothing will stop you. Nothing. Excuses are excuses. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do, but you have to be willing to grind. You have to let the alarm clock be drowned out by that voice inside you that makes you get up when you're tired, that makes you go the extra mile when you might have to miss a meal. You have to be willing to grind if you want to do what you want to do, because it's not going to come easy, but the reward is happiness, it's clarity, it's direction, and it's complete joy. Joy to me is above happiness. Joy is a full fulfillment of what life has to give you. And obviously the higher power for me is God's all big in that picture, but the joy is what is waiting for you when you find your passion. And like I said, if you can make money at it too, that's a beautiful thing, because like the old saying is, if you have a job you love, you never have to work another day in your life, which is kind of bullshit, because sometimes work's work and you have clients that piss you off, or you're on your period for the day too. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I come in cranky, but yeah. So that's what I leave people with, man. Follow your passion and allow that voice inside to be louder than your alarm clock. Get up and grind, baby. Go get it, because you can have it if you want it.
Yeah. Where can
The next one up, we have Franz Schneidman, and we talk about your personal ethos and your purpose and really crystallizing your why. So here you go.
again, it's perfect carry over to life. I mean, don't get stuck in a box. Don't think everything you're doing is the end all be all. Be open to the different things. If, try it. If it doesn't work, then move on.
Yeah, and as long as the trainer is curious and asking questions, then they're going to be successful in their entire career. Like the second they stop asking questions, I'm fearful. Like, ooh, that person, like I like people when they say, well, why would I do that? Like, why do I need sprinting? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of cognitive dissonance going on. Your brain's like, that's great. Scratch that brain, make it hurt a little bit. If you're not challenging that part of your, cognitive life, your intellectual life, you're not growing.
Yeah.
Like, and we don't get. I have periods of time where I'm just like, oh God, I need to study or something. Like, I need to just get some new information.
I love reading, love doing stuff new. Like I took up singing lessons because it just messes with my head.
I took up piano last year.
We were talking about it.
It's insane.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to do something together.
You sing and I play the piano.
That's the next podcast.
We'll see if anybody listens to that.
Well, what is something that you would like to leave people with?
I would say for fit pros or people that are either in the fitness industry, I would say definitely stay open-minded, but also don't stay so open-minded that you don't have a system. Like, always be in the process of kind of, really kind of crystallizing what your core ethos is, like what your core belief is. Like I believe in X, and therefore, this is why I do X because of this. Like always be in the process of kind of defining in very simple terms, like big rocks, like what is it that really motivates you, and what is the message you're trying to get across. Like, mine is this intentional athleticism, like for the 18 athlete. Why? Because you don't want to lose these capacities. We want health span. We don't want lifespan. To maximize every freaking second of life that we have here. And fitness is just a great tool to do that, right? It's just very, when you push yourself physically, it's very empowering to all other areas of life. It really transcends just fitness. It's just a great vehicle. It's very symbolic of you kind of taking a stand in your life and just taking ownership and being responsible and accountable, right? And I would just say, live a very proactive life in whatever it is you want. Don't live in a reactive mode where you're like, you just let stuff happen and you let opportunities go, and you're always I really struggled with not being very good at making decisions sometimes, and it's costing me. Sometimes you just need to make a decision and just go with it. And if it doesn't work out, then fine, make another decision. But you have to, you just have to do things. And if you're not excited by something, find something you're excited about. And in the fitness context, there's a lot in this world of the global fitness community. There's a lot of people that need help in the world. And you personally, as a coach or as a trainer, can only help so many people. I mean, you have a place. Everybody has a place if they're truly passionate about helping people. Definitely in fitness. Everybody has a place, and everybody has a unique message. And I would say just really find out what that message is, and as you talked about, what gets you out of the morning, what gets you up in the morning. If you would do something for free, which I don't always recommend. But if you would do it for free, because you're that passionate about it, it's probably more of a craft rather than a job. And I say, work on your craft. Don't necessarily find a job. I've been very fortunate to have a craft.
Yeah.
Where, all of the financial stuff, and that's a job. But the coaching, the creating, the teaching, talking to you, that's a craft. Right?
Yeah.
That's a craft. That's something that just we could just talk all day about it because we're passionate about it.
Yeah.
It's fun. And I would say find your message, find your passion, find your craft, work on your craft, and live a proactive life. Like the only thing that matters is that you take action. Don't, ideas, whatever. You have all these ideas for business or training. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you actually take action. Like massive action on something. Whatever it is. Like just do that every day. Just take massive action every day. That's that.
That's it.
That's it.
Good started with that.
That's it. Take massive action.
Cool. Where can people find?
The next one is Veronica Peterson, and we talk about some social media, youth and social media, and also some turning points in her life that really carries over onto most people's lives. So the micro and the macro events that happened in her life that has her who she is. Here you go.
Mention working with kids. What is it about working with kids, and why do you want to impact the younger generations or younger folks?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Judge would be great to work with kids just because he has a great temperament.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important, especially, I didn't grow up in this social media world where kids even young kids now have social media. And it's such a different world. I mean, they are constantly on. Everybody is constantly putting themselves out there. And I think it's becoming increasingly harder for young people to kind of recognize why they're important and to have their own self-identity. They see everything online and they're like, oh, I should be like this person, or I should make more posts like this person. And I think the message is especially important for young people. And I think kids are so, especially young kids, they're so honest. I really think it's going to be cool to start listening to kids come up with reasons why they're remarkable, because I think even hearing that, it will inspire adults to think of different reasons. Because kids think of things that adults want to self-censor sometimes, and I just think that aspect of it will be really neat. One of my goals is for Judge to become a therapy dog. I think he would be so good at it. And I think it would be really cool, especially like young kids who are struggling with an illness, to be able to not have that illness define them, but have something else that makes them awesome or remarkable, and be able to recognize that.
Yeah, and what better way to reach the younger kids? They're already on social media, but through a social media way of
Exactly.
So it's really great. Was there anything like a point in your life, a determining event or something that impacted you and how you interact with the world? Maybe it was something with your parents, or you saw them do something, or
Oh, man. That's a good question. I think there's, on a micro level, things that happen every day. On a macro level, I think...
If you said it was the micro level, we'll go there first. Where's daily things that you...
just overcoming your struggles every day, I think defines who we all are. I think it's so easy to get caught up in our own stuff. We all have issues. We all have things that we're dealing with. And so overcoming those daily obstacles, whatever they may be. And then I think in larger part, seeing my parents, my parents worked so hard when I was growing up. They owned a restaurant here in Reno, and my mom also worked full time as a microbiologist. And we had nannies growing up because they worked at night because they owned a restaurant. And so I saw how hard they worked and how hard they worked for our family. And it really shaped who I am now. They became such important members of the community because of the restaurant that they had, and they really made a difference. I've had people reach out to me through social media who used to work for them and say, your parents gave me the opportunity to work for them and changed my life. They were the most amazing people, and I appreciated the time that I worked for them so much. People in the community still come up to me and talk to me about their restaurant and how special it was. And so I think from them I got a sense of how important it is to bring something important to the community. And while they're different things, my project and a restaurant, it's kind of the same concept. Bringing something important to your community and having people appreciate you for that.
If there was a message that you would love to get out to everybody, whether it's write it in the sky where everybody can see or a big billboard, I steal this question from Tim Ferriss because I love it. If there's one, I don't know if there's a quote or it's just something from you that you would just love everybody to know, what would it be?
For me, that is that you are remarkable. And I think it's important.
Yeah.
You are remarkable, and it's okay to recognize it. And I think people need to hear that.
All right, and the next one is Tony Florial, and I can't even get into what he talks about because it's mind-blowing. So sit back, relax, and prepare to get your hair blown back.
I was 26, and I had these sort of satori moments. I wouldn't say it was enlightenment by any sketch of imagination, but it was a period where I felt like complete, that nothing outside of me could ever make me happy. I'm already it. Everything else outside of me would be an added bonus,
Was that the birth of like being in the flow and like kind of like what your life kind of did it shift there? Was that into what you're doing now, or like what was that the catalyst for?
Yeah, it definitely was a massive catalyst. When you're 26, you only have like 26 years of context behind you. So I knew about like being in the zone, being an athlete. I've had these like profound experiences of like, doing athletic feats where I just like wonder how the hell did I do that, or I like dropped into a tube in a wave and it was in like slow motion, so there was time dilation, felt like a time warp machine or something. And so I had all these experiences. I had these spiritual experiences. So over years I was really into like trying to find out what that was, because no one was like openly talking about it. Every so often you would hear athletes talk about being in the zone, where they couldn't miss a shot. You would see people like Michael Jordan like put their hands up in the air and be like, I don't know how I did that, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that there was something there, but there wasn't anybody, at least in my peer group, that I could talk to about it. And even though I wasn't Catholic, I did go to church sometimes. I felt something. I even felt it when I watched my grandma pray every night. And she was like diabetic and could barely see and hear, but there was something coming out of her room. Like we would all, as her her grandkids, we would like kind of watch by the door, and it was like this glow was coming out. So it was like, what is that, right? So for a while, I got into like new agey stuff, right? And I heard people like Dr. Wayne Dyer talking, and Deepak Chopra, and then there was this like quantum science stuff, and like what did we do know?
Right.
So I was always searching. I was reading. I was like, well, what's the difference between this religion and that religion, right? And I was intrigued by like meditative Buddhas and yogis and stuff, right? So to answer your question, it was just this continual search, and it wasn't until I ended up in Canada, I think about 2007, where I started to like ask myself, are there other people out there that know about flow? And funny enough, that's when I typed it into Facebook search engine, and Flow Genome Project popped up. So I was like, whoa, like what is this, right? Like flow, like genes, okay, it's science of flow states. And that's what really drove me into that community, because I was like, okay, there's a group out there of people, a lot of extreme athletes, a lot of people that experience flow through other means, like including psychedelics. And I was like, they're actually like putting a science to it. They're trying to debunk what New Agey kind of went too far with. So yeah, there's these experiences that are happening, but they're getting lumped into a little bit into the woo-woo sense. So like, don't get me wrong, I believe in woo. I just don't believe in woo-woo. Right? Because there's some sort of unexplainable, inexplicable like phenomenons that happen in my life, and I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Like,
But once you say it's woo woo, it turns people off. They're like, no way. That there's it just like woo woo's gotten a bad name for sure. But woo, you're like,
yeah,
it's the flow, it's the zone,
the zone, the flow,
and it's almost, it can almost be proven now, scientifically, stuff like that, be quantified.
Yeah, they're starting to measure like the brain waves, the heart waves, the muscle waves, like the cumulative effect of the human being, like when all those systems go into harmony, right? And then that's like the neurochemistry that comes out of it, the hormones. So they're getting better at measuring these states, and they happen through meditation, through emergency situations, through sport, through creativity, through being in nature, stacking all of them. They happen through chemistry, whether it's psychedelics or even coffee, or there's so many what they call gateways into flow. And then now they're trying to differentiate the like different kinds of flow. So there's like more of a language coming out. So there's like a spectrum of flow, like they simplified and called it like microflow or macroflow. So microflow is like you're having a conversation with somebody, and like a couple hours went by, it felt like 10 minutes. Yeah. Macroflow is like full on Big Bang flow, where it's like everything goes like almost outer body. You're like performing feats that you are just sitting there like, how the hell did I do that on the back end of it? And it just feels like a universal oneness and a connection, and that would be like my holy shit that happened to me. And I didn't really get that until, which leads to how I end up in flow, and like the work that I do is when I was on Guam, I was kind of bored of being a coach and a strength coach. I felt like it was more of a counselor for people. I felt like people were just telling me their deep, darkest secrets. I was like, might as well have been a hairdresser or bartender,
Yeah.
So you probably know that too, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, what else can I do out there? I was ready for like a change, and I just kind of put it out there, and this kind of rolled into flow as well. It's like the hero's journey. It's like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm putting it out there, like, please show me whatever this experience, God or universe you want to call it, like, show me the next way, the next road to the path. And then I just got a random email about this space age technology that helped the stuntman regenerated his like Humpty Dumpty shattered leg. And I was like, whoa, what is this, right? And I started reading into it. And it turned out that this stuntman for Hawaii Five-0 and Magnum PI and like the $6 million man Lee Major, he shattered his leg like Humpty Dumpty, and they told him he needed a total knee replacement, or else it would be the end of his career. And Lee Majors, the Bionic Man, basically told him, said, "Hey, don't get the knee replacement because they will replace you."
Right. Yeah.
He's like, "You need to check out this experimental machine that's out of LA that all these pro athletes are using, and get hooked up to this thing," because he's like, "It helped my arthritic crippled knees, and now I can play tennis." So my friend, my stuntman mentor, he basically flew to LA, got the treatment, and then, long story short, ended up like developing the protocols that make this machine sing. And he regenerated his leg, and he's done like 30 triathlons since, right, on this leg that should be like permanently disabled.
Yeah, or replaced.
Yeah. And so I was like, holy shit. Like, I studied pre-med, and I went through like considering going into physical therapy, so I've seen all the modalities. I was super skeptical, but something inside of me was telling me this was it.
Yeah.
So I called up the institute after I had heard this teleconference call, and my mentor John Thorpe, the stuntman, he caught my attention when he said they had to rewrite the physiology textbook. Instead of calling it cellular physiology, he said they need to rename it cellular physiology, because for some reason the body knows how to heal itself. You cut your finger, it heals itself. You don't have to sit there and like mend it or tell it, it will do it. So there's some sort of intelligence there. And he basically said that this machine like links you up to that intelligence. And the more I got into it, and this is where it gets really a bit hard to confirm or validate, because it's just stories coming from him that came from the inventor, who's a total recluse, who works for the military, but developed this device for humanity, and then he walked away. So a lot of these stories like can't be confirmed, but it's what I've been told. And in my 14 years of being involved with this technology, that's why I continue to be involved, because if it's true that we are electrical beings, because we do have brain waves that are electrical, our heart waves are electrical, and our muscle waves are electrical. We have these devices that measure all that, and most people know about the heart, the EKG or ECG in some schools of thoughts, but when you look at like what's the difference between like a yogi who has maybe, or like Wim Hof, the Iceman, has like control of their physiology through their psychology, and vice versa. What does their brain waves, heart waves, and muscle waves look like versus somebody that's a bomb just went off right next to them? Imagine what their brain waves, heart waves, and muscle waves look like. Imagine what kind of neurochemicals and hormones are being released when they're in fight or flight versus, let's say, supposedly like a yogi that a bomb goes off and they don't even flinch. So once I understood this, especially when I got hooked up with the machine, and I talked to John Thorpe, because after I heard that teleconference call, I called the institute. I was still skeptical, right? And I ended up talking to this guy for 40 minutes. I just thought it was a rep. And then he at the 40-minute mark was like, "Tony, where are you calling from?" Like, Guam. He's like, "What the hell are you doing in Guam, man? Are you a surfer or something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I surf, but the reef too shallow here." He's like, "By the way, you're talking to John Thorpe." And I'm like, "Gee, be John Thorpe?" I'm like, "Is it really true?" He's like, "Yeah, it's true." And I'm like, "Well, I'm leaving Guam. I'm coming back to the mainland, California. I want to see you. I want to meet you. I want to see your leg. I want to try the machine."
Yeah.
So he gave me his personal cell phone number, and he was like, "When you come out, we'll meet up." So that's pretty much that was the sign to move on from personal training, massage, and all that, and I just went for it. Took a complete leap of faith. There was a series of synchronicities that happened before where I ended up in Maui, where he used to have clinics in Hawaii. I met up with an old friend of mine who is a massage therapist, and I asked her, because you're on the island, it's kind of small, so I said, "Do you know a guy named John Thorpe?" And she's like, "Yeah, I used to work for him." I'm like, "Really? Like with the machine?" She's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Really?" And she's like, I was like, "Yeah, does it really work?" And she's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Holy crap!" So that, and I got one of Dr. Wayne Dyer's books for my sister, and he said the future of medicine was going to be like energy medicine. So it was like all these things lining up, right? It's almost like the secret, so to speak,
Right.
because I kind of did have a vision for it, but we can get into that later. That goes deep, but all these things were like signs along the way. And then I called up John from Maui, and he answered, and I said, "Hey, where are you at?" Or he asked me, "Where are you at?" And I said, "Well, where are you at?" And he says, "I'm in the Pili." And I'm like, "Shut up, man, I'm in Lahaina," which are two neighboring towns in Maui.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Great, we'll meet for brunch tomorrow in Kanapali." And I'm like, "Holy shit." So I meet him and his fiance the next day. I see his like deformed leg that it's fully like functional, full range of motion, even though it's bone on bone, has no cartilage in it. And he's just jumping up and down, like no pain. And I'm like, wow. And so I couldn't make the August class, but I made the December class. So December of this year will be 14 years.
Wow.
And it was just one of those things where I started traveling around the world as people found out about this. And I would do demos. And then they end up like either buying their own machine, or they'd tell their doctor or health provider to buy one for that area, or they would get a few sessions, so that's pretty much been my life the last almost 14 years.
What was the name of the machine then? Has it changed now?
Yeah, so the original machines, there were two separate ones, one for the nervous system and one for the rest of the body, the tissues, connected tissues. So it was called the electroacuoscope. So that's more of like an EEG device, like for the brain and nervous system. And then you have the electromyopulse. So that's all connected tissue. So bone, muscles, tendon, ligaments, skin, blood, everything else the body's made of that's not made out of nerves. So, you combine those two machines, and then they basically help the body remember what homeostasis is. And it helps, in my experience, it helps you remember like the original state. So that's where the holy shit happened the third time, because I grew up hearing impaired. So I wear a hearing aid my left ear right now, but at a certain point I was using the machine to help with my hearing. So it was almost like a morning and evening meditation. So I do 30 minutes on the machine in the morning, 30 minutes at night. So I did that.
How do you hook up to the machine?
So I hooked up electrodes to my earlobes.
And like with his knee, he would hook it up to his knee, or
yeah. So
okay.
whatever, there's different tools, electrodes, probes, plates that you can put on different parts of the body. So I did the what's called the electro meditation protocol, but it helps for like your vision, for your ears, your hearing, for your sinuses, for headaches. So I would do that morning and night, and there was a certain intensity, which was 100 microamps, and the machine at maximum was 600 microamps. So that's really tiny. Like if you look at like muscle stimulators, those are in milliamps. It's like thousands of times more powerful than the device that we're using.
Right.
We're down in the millionth with the TH.
Yeah.
The billions, like pico, like nanoamps, like trillions of an amp. It's like so tiny. So there's no like, you can't like hurt anybody with this
You can't
device.
feel it.
Yeah, if at the maximum you'll feel a tingle,
Oh.
and certain areas of the body will elicit a muscle reflex.
Yeah.
But it's
like
not
a
like
little pulse or like a little
yeah.
contraction.
You might get like your neck and your
Twitch.
traps twitching.
Yeah, but nothing like the stem.
The
machines
stems
where
are
they're
like so powerful,
crazy, yeah.
and they have their application. It's just knowing when to use it and when not to use it. So I still believe that electric muscle stim in the milliamp still has its roles. So anyways, back to that story where I was hooked up to the machine. For about 2 weeks, I was at 100 microamps, and I wasn't really feeling like the pulse anymore. And I looked at the handbook, and it said like that you can go up to 200 microamps. And at that time, I was working in a chiropractic clinic in Palo Alto, California. So one of the clients had to cancel. So during that hour, I hooked up to the machine for myself, and I clicked it from 100 microamps to 200 microamps, and I literally almost fell out of my seat because the veil removed from my eyes. I swore I heard angels singing, and there was this big bliss rush that came over me with just this most amazing feeling of like aliveness and happiness and like love. And I was like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And like, I think they heard me in the other room, right? So I turned off the machine, I plugged it back in, I walk out, and they're like, what just happened in there? And I was like, let me tell you. And so I was like literally blissed out of my mind for that whole afternoon. And then we went to lunch, went back into the office, and I was like trying to describe this experience. And all I could say was, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And for the first time, I understood what holy meant, and I had a holy shift.
Yeah.
So I went from holy shit to holy shit, and it gave me context of what happened to me when I hit rock bottom those 2 times in Guam. And I finally realized this is what a lot of the spiritual traditions have been talking about. And these are some of the sort of woo-woo things that science is still trying to like catch up with. And so I had that direct experience, and so from then on, I was like, man, other people need to experience like this.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And so it was either through taking them out of pain with the machine, which is basically FDA approved for it. It does detoxification, but it's literally that powerful where the way I likened it is like you take a battery, we're all batteries basically, and then over time we just deplete energy. And the cell phone analogy to me explains it perfectly, because just think of like every person is a cell phone, and you can see what your percentage of battery life is, right? And then you can see what your signal output is. So if you're a full battery, 100% charge, and you have a full signal, then you're getting clear signal from another communicator, another cell phone. Well, our cells in our body is cellular, cells talking to cells, trillions of cells talking to each other. So if their energy is at 100%, like a child, a baby, and they have full clear signal, then that, to me, that's health and wellness. So your monkey mind is calm, you're clear-minded, you can see things the way they are, they're not like cognitive biases in a way. And so to me, the machine essentially, and then basically the updated version that we're using now, is they compress both machines into one. So now it's called the Electro Equiscope. So that's what I travel with now, like doing demonstrations with this device, and it tells you like what your energy level is, and so you will have an experience of feeling like you're fully charged, and that you're clear. You can basically communicate. Your cells are communicating to each other. You're communicating with other people more clearly.
No shit.
Yeah,
It's fucking crazy, man.
and what's crazy is that we are capacitors. We store energy. We have brain waves, heart waves, muscle waves, like we were saying earlier. So it's like if a sick person, they probably are very low vitality. There's these words.
Yeah.
What is vitality? Is energy. So it's like, maybe that person is really depleted. Why are they depleted? Well, I mean, we're bombarded with all kinds of issues these days in modern life. We're trying to survive. We're in a rat race. We aren't going outside the sun. The sun recharges us. We're taught to be afraid of the sun, but it's all the dosage, right? We don't ground, we don't earth, we don't go in nature. We're exposed to new signals that are conflicting with our cellular signals. So our cells are a little bit like freaked out because they're like, yeah, what's this satellite thing? What's this Wi-Fi thing? What's radio? What's microwave? What's infrared? Even the sun has solar flares. So there's all these signals. The moon, the gravitational pull, right? Like the foods we eat, the stories we tell ourselves, right? All of this is a culmination of experiences, and we actually have the opportunity to learn from the ancient mystics, sort of woo-woo, take what was good about what they're teaching and discard the bullshit parts, you know, and then really reconnect with nature, reconnect with ourselves, you know, and I feel we have the capacity to recharge ourselves and get clear again, you know, and certain technologies enable us to do that, and that's where the whole biohacking space is coming in, and quantifying like genetics and blood, micronutrients, macronutrients, like getting all that data, so now you can make a better choice on how to get to these sort of optimal states.
Yeah, the choices we have are amazing.
Yeah.
Could you?
The next one we have up is Helen Scatini. We talk about what advice she would give a young entrepreneur or a somebody who's just turning pro athlete, and the advice that she would give them. So here you go.
What would you tell a young, smart, passionate, driven, say it's a student or a young pro,
Yeah.
going their first year into real life?
Real life being like the profession that they wanted.
Yeah, like out of college, leaving college, or into the profession that they wanted. Yeah.
Man, I feel like you're gonna get so many bumps in the road, and you have to just be focused on your final destination and where you want to be. And if you're passionate about it, then that's, what you have to be driven towards. Otherwise, there's so many different, moments and upsets and things like that could kind of like, I don't know, change your route. I just feel like there's a lot of people that sort of give up a little bit too easily. And like, after my third broken leg, my dad's like, so, I think you might want to go to school now? And I was like, nope, I'm going to be a snowboarder. And he's like, all right, Thank God I did that. And after doctors were like, you shouldn't snowboard anymore, Screw you. I'm going to keep doing it. And I was just trying to create the right, I'd be much more in tune with my body and be much more active in a gym routine and things like that to make it feasible. But I feel like you need to be, if you have your passion, you have to really you have to be a bit of a one-track mind so that you succeed.
What's bad advice that you hear that for somebody? What's bad advice for somebody in the same situation going into their quote unquote real life?
I feel like also you have to know when to give up. So it's hard. Like a perfect example is my brother. He kept getting a lot of concussions, and concussions you don't want to fuck with.
Yeah.
So at a certain point he had to call it. And it's sad because he didn't truly live out, the whole professional snowboarder thing, but he kind of saved himself because had he gotten even more, his head wouldn't be right, So I think there's a really fine line. Like I know I said you got to go for it and one track mind, but at the same time you have to know when to throw in the towel. And it's tough.
Yeah, what's advice that you just ignore, that you hear out there that you just ignore?
Don't be selfish. I think you should 100% be selfish.
Oh.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you need to be selfish whether it's with your time or just your energy or your passion or your drive, you know? I think there's moments where you have to be selfish, otherwise you're not going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah? You're okay with that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been selfish many a times with my business and, competing and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's like,
You can't
this
always
is,
worry about other people.
yeah, this is my time, and I've missed out on a ton of stuff, and people are like, oh, you're being selfish because I was building the business or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Sometimes there's moments where you got to just be selfish.
yeah.
Maybe not every
moments
aspect
or-
of life, but
or-
there's phases.
In the last 5 years, what have you gotten really good at saying no to?
Socializing?
Yeah.
No, I think I'm a lot more confident in that in the last couple years. A lot of times I would do it because I know that's what I was supposed to do, but then I'd not enjoy it. And so that's a selfish thing. A friend would want me to go out, and I would go out because I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to, or she wants me to, or something. And then ultimately I'm like, it's not healthy for me because I don't want to be here. So I think I've learned to say no to that.
And the realization it's not healthy is this is not healthy for me if I go out in these social situations that I really don't want to be in the first place.
Yeah, I just think for your mental happiness, if I don't want to be there, why am I doing it? So that's another slightly selfish act. So I'm like, I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. How often do you have to explain that? How often do you have to do that?
Well, I honestly hang out with a pretty close-knit crew, so they all know me very well. So it's always kind of a joke. If I am out, they're like, "Whoo, Helen's out!
Yeah.
What's the occasion?"
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm close enough with those sort of people. And as well, I'm 32 now, 33 next week.
Oh.
But I feel like kind of at that age, people are starting to calm down a little bit more. Mid-20s, it was kind of more of a tough call, and there'd be, some disputes or fights because I wouldn't be going out because it's sort of the time where you do party a lot. But now I feel like a lot more people are more on my page, so it's not as much of an issue. And I feel like down here, Southern California specifically, not drinking is like turning into a fad. So it's easy to say I'm not drinking and people don't think twice. Whereas either in Whistler or 5 years ago, people would be like, what the hell's going on with you? Like something's wrong.
Yeah. While you're out if you're not drinking.
Yeah.
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 Weird.
Totally.
Teetotaler.
Mm-hmm.
I went to I've been on this detox for last week.
Alrighty, and there you have it. There is just a few of some of my favorite tiblets and my favorite moments in the podcast. I've got a lot of them, but I thought I would keep this to an hour. Hopefully the sound adjustments and the sound differences was not too terribly annoying. I did my best. So, well, that's it for right now. Before you go, if you would like to get a very short email from me, I send an email out once a month, and it's about all the stuff that I dig up throughout the month, books I read, diets I try, supplements I try, people I work with, and I'm consistently digging stuff up in my life, and I throw it into an email, and it's very short. And if you'd like to get that, go to my website, robertbudd.net, and you can drop your email in. Just scroll down into the website. What am I trying to say there, Robert? And stick your email there, and you get the very next one. Also, if you'd like to see these show notes or more of these, listen to more of these podcasts, go to robertbudd.net/podcast, and I archive them all there, and there's a fair amount of them, so hopefully you enjoy them. And if you have any feedback or if you ever want to get a hold of me, there's a place where you can contact me on my website, robertbudd.net. So, with that being said, I love and appreciate all of you. I really, really appreciate you listening and all the feedback that I have gotten for the website. I think it's really, really cool, and the podcast. So, with that, I love you, and until next time, just keep on keeping on. Take care. Bye-bye.